As recently discussed, MAGA Republican North Carolina gubernatorial candidate Mark Robinson was hit with a devastating scandal, which may have serious election-changing consequences, not just for him, but also for Donald Trump. And as the political fallout continues, a visibly emotional Lindsey Graham went on Sean Hannity's show to try to do damage control for both Robinson and, more importantly, for Trump. And we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video. As we discussed in the videos about the initial scandal, this could cost Donald Trump the election. Mark Robinson is the current lieutenant governor of North Carolina. He's a MAGA zealot. He has been endorsed and embraced by Donald Trump over the years. Trump referred to him as Martin Luther King Jr. ×2, Martin Luther King Jr. on steroids. And Mark Robinson is a homophobe, a transphobe, a bigot, somebody who has engaged in apologia for slavery and for Nazis. So even prior to this recent porn forum scandal, he was a disaster, and Trump should have known better. But Mark Robinson loved to own the libs, and that's really all that MAGA Republicans care about. Now, as a consequence, not only is Robinson very likely to lose the governor's race here in North Carolina, he may cost Trump the election in North Carolina, and really just overall as a consequence, because Trump really needs to win that state. So I want to play some clips because, again, a visibly emotional Lindsey Graham, who sees the entire thing fall apart around him, went on Sean Hannity to try to make excuses, half-heartedly defend Robinson, and more importantly, defend Trump.
And he's been an unbelievable...
I should also say, for context, before we get started in this, this is an advertisement that Vice President Harris's campaign dropped in North Carolina about Trump and Robinson, again, just to kind of set the stage. Then we will get into the clips of Lindsey Graham and Sean Hannity.
And he's been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson.
For me, there is no compromise on abortion.
I think you're better than Martin Luther King.
We could pass a bill saying you can't have an abortion in North Carolina for any reason.
The abortion in this country is about killing a child because you aren't responsible enough to keep your skirts down.
I've been with him a lot. I've gotten to know him, and he's outstanding.
Donald Trump and Mark Robinson. They're both wrong for North Carolina.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
And he's been an...
There you go. Absolutely devastating stuff. And again, it could have potential game-changing implications on the election. So here is Lindsey Graham pleading for Trump and Robinson on Sean Hannity.
We're just inundated with ads tying Robinson to Trump. Donald Trump endorsed Robinson. Donald Trump had no knowledge about the CNN report. We don't know if it's true, but Robinson needs to address the allegations in that report. They're unnerving. If they're true, he is unfit for office. If they're true, if they're untrue, he should sue CNN. Donald Trump didn't do anything with Mark Robinson.
Except he endorsed him, praised him, embraced him, touted him again as the second coming of a superior Martin Luther King Jr., and no amount of revisionist history is going to change that. We have the receipts, Lindsey. Perhaps your cult leader should have shut his mouth and not, gone so far as to praise someone he apparently either didn't know or should have known better, or knew and didn't care because, again, Mark Robinson owns the libs. Again, this goes back to MAGA Republicans like Lindsey Graham trying to absolve Donald Trump of any degree of culpability. Pretty pathetic stuff.
This is really a hit job. It is unconscionable. And if we did this to them, it would be blowing up the entire mainstream media. This is really a hit job.
Again, Lindsey Graham. So listen, number one, October surprises happen all the time. Lindsey Graham's party tried to dump an October surprise back in 2020, the Hunter Biden laptop. They engage in this sort of nefarious acts all the time. The difference is it's not the Democrats trying to drop this. It's CNN engaging in investigative reporting. They gave Mark Robinson 48 hours to respond before they published the video. Mark Robinson declined until the last second. They published the report, as well they should, because, again, it's the media. Fox would absolutely do this. The Daily Wire would absolutely do this. OAN would absolutely do this. Newsmax would absolutely do this. Unfortunately, our candidates just tend to be morally superior to your candidates, Lindsey. That's the real critical difference. But Lindsey can't fathom any degree of accountability for Robinson or especially for Trump.
Well, he is actually her preacher. But the point is that when somebody says something and I have a relationship with them, I don't own all of that. The reason we're not running these ads is that there would be a firestorm that is unfair. It would be unfair to say that somebody you wrote a letter about, or even your own pastor, you own every stupid thing they did. We'd be crucified politically if we did that. That's literally their campaign in North Carolina, is trying to make people believe that Donald Trump somehow is involved with the Robinson guy. Donald Trump knew nothing about this. I knew nothing about it. They're trying to guilt by association.
If you're a Republican,
you own Mark Robinson.
That's exactly the game of politics. And the fact of the matter is Republicans did do this. They do it to President Biden. They've done it to President Obama. They did it to Hillary Clinton. They did it to Bill Clinton. This is part and parcel of American politicking. Republicans have absolutely employed the quote unquote guilt by association. But here's the difference. Donald Trump willingly endorsed Mark Robinson, and not just endorsed him for office, endorsed his morality, endorsed his ethics, endorsed his worldview. So Donald Trump, if he didn't know Mark Robinson, shouldn't have lied to the American people with that endorsement. Oh, I know Mark Robinson so well. Oh, he's like the second coming of Martin Luther King Jr. Tell your cult leader not to lie so much, and maybe he wouldn't be in the situation. Maybe he should actually vet the people whom he endorses beyond, oh my God, they like to offend and own the libs. That's the only litmus test that Donald Trump employs when engaging somebody. Are they loyal to him, and do they own the libs? That's all he cares about, and that's on him. And so I'm sorry, he's made his bed, and Democrats are absolutely right to ruthlessly prosecute this case, because the truth of the matter is, as demonstrated in the past, when it was President Obama's pastor, I vividly recall he said some incendiary things, and Fox News and Republicans were up in arms about it for years. They were also up in arms about tan suits and Dijon mustard. So again, take none of what they say at face value here. They're just liars. But they just don't like the fact that Democrats are doing it to them, and for even better reason. You know who's not impressed? The Conservative National Review publication, one of the most reputable conservative publications in the country. I disagree with virtually everything they say, but it's alongside the Wall Street Journal, like a pretty legendary right-wing publication. This is what their editorial board wrote. The costly Mark Robinson lesson. The North Carolina gubernatorial race is lost a month and a half before it's even formally set to take place in November. In a news dump on Thursday by two separate media outlets, Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, running to succeed term-limited incumbent Democrat Roy Cooper, was revealed to the world to have engaged in multiple unseemly behaviors online, particularly during his days as an enthusiastic participant in the comments section of a pornography website. The most salacious of Robinson's postings reveal the sort of private sexual peccadillos that cannot be discussed with dignity, yet are politically fatal. Far more relevant to voter concerns were comments in which Robinson proudly labeled himself a black Nazi, or averred that he would happily own slaves himself if he could. Such was his contempt for many of his fellow African Americans. The deadline to drop out is past, and Robinson's Democratic opponent, Attorney General Josh Stein, had already built a sizable advantage in polling over the lieutenant governor before the scandal broke. Robinson has been a controversial statewide figure for years before he became the GOP nominee. Now, Stein can measure the drapes for the governor's mansion. Almost all of Robinson's campaign staff have quit, and the Republican Governors Association has decided to pull its advertising money from the race as an inevitable act of triage. Some fret that Mark Robinson is so toxic that he threatens Donald Trump's hold on a state he requires for any plausible national electoral victory scenario in November. It seems unlikely, though. That's not the way that national elections typically work. It's true Trump is in danger of losing North Carolina, but if he does, it will be on his own demerits, not those of a down ballot candidate long since given up for dead. But it is appropriate to ask why Mark Robinson cruised to the GOP nomination in 2024 when the contents of his opposition file were already an open secret in state politics for years. So much so that he was making terrified excuses for them in private to donors well over a year ago. What was known about him at all by that point, to name one thing, his long history of making anti-Semitic comments and curiously ambivalent statements about Nazi Germany, should have been more than disqualifying. The reason why they weren't is twofold. Most obviously because Donald Trump endorsed him in 2023, and his endorsement both chased other potential candidates from the race and cemented the vote of the rank and file. But there's more to it than just that, for Robinson was likely to win his primary regardless of Trump's intervention. He's a bomb thrower skilled at inflaming his right-wing audiences and playing to January 6th truthers and other cranks. The Republican Party, beginning with its voters, needs to recognize that choosing candidates based on their offensive-ness and fringy vibes is a formula for futility. Chalk up the North Carolina governorship as another race lost for the GOP by forfeit. So there you go, folks. That's the National Review publicly lamenting and condemning the state of the Republican Party, whose only currency, again, is blind loyalty to Donald Trump and owning the libs. It is pathetic. It should be condemned. And these losers should be relentlessly defeated at the ballot box in every damn jurisdiction, in every election. That's the only thing that's going to potentially change the GOP from an authoritarian cult of personality with no limiting principle and no interest in responsible governance to potentially a principled, conservative, loyal opposition party. That just might be the West Wing viewer in me. I don't know if it's possible, but I can tell you the only thing that will ever make that a potential reality is kicking their ass at the election, at the ballot box, in every election from now until they finally wave the white flag and say, you know what? My bad. We're done with this Trump stuff. We're sorry. We're going to go back to the neocon era where we're more loyal opposition. That's the only way that they're ever going to change. So if you're an eligible voter, I think you should make a plan to register to vote, to get out to vote, or vote by absentee ballot, mail-in ballot, whatever you're eligible for, and vote blue relentlessly in November, every November. Let me know what you think in the comments.